So imagine this, you've just finished the main story of Assassin's Creed Bikini Bottom, and now you want to 100% the game. So you open your map, but it looks like this. What do? Odds are you're gonna close the game and let it collect dust in your game library. At this point, you're probably wondering, what on earth is this guy even talking about? Well, I'm talking about God of War Ragnarok, of course, and how it does the complete opposite of Assassin's Creed, which, by the way, is an entirely original game, and any reference to real-world games is entirely coincidental. Now, God of War Ragnarok has been praised by everyone for its story, gameplay, combat, pretty much every aspect of that game. And don't get me wrong, it definitely deserves that praise. That game is perfect as far as I'm concerned. But one aspect of Ragnarok that we here at Playing Favorites feel like has slipped through the cracks is the post-story content, or what the game calls Beyond Ragnarok. Sony Santa Monica mastered this aspect of game making, something a lot of other studios struggle with. And they did so by employing 3 genius game design tactics that made 100%ing this game a treat, even when it feels like a chore with most other games. We're going to be delving deep into these 3 design choices that elevated God of War's post-story content. But full disclosure, before we get into the video, we will be discussing spoilers, which should be obvious given that we're talking about post-story content. So if you somehow still haven't played this game, A, why, and B, you should probably save this video and come back to it later. Now, without further ado, let's talk about the 3 things God of War Ragnarok did right to make platinuming this game almost as fun as playing the main story. So the first thing Sony Santa Monica did to make sure that their players stick around till the end of the game is not so obvious, but it had a huge impact. We're talking about the most grindy aspect of every platinum trophy, collectibles. In most games, collectibles are used to urge the player to explore every corner of a map or a level, but they don't provide much value after that. That was definitely not the case with God of War though, and there are 2 examples that highlight this perfectly: Kvasir's poems and Odin's ravens. Let's first look at the poems. There are 14 poetry books that you can pick up that are scattered throughout the 9 realms. And of course, like everything else in this game, Mimir has a silly Scottish quip about it. But what makes these poems so interesting is that each one of them is a reference to a different PlayStation exclusive game. This is most obvious when you view your entire poetry collection back at Sindri's house, where you can clearly see what game each book references, like The Last of Us, Ghost of Tsushima, Uncharted, and Horizon. While the poetry books are unique to Ragnarok, Odin's Ravens are a returning collectible from 2018's God of War. But what makes them special in Ragnarok is the different ways Sony Santa Monica fleshed out these otherwise grindy collectibles and made collecting them much more rewarding. While in the 2018 game, hunting all of the ravens simply gives you a trophy, in Ragnarok, getting all of the ravens does not only give you access to 6 legendary chests containing some of the best runic attacks in the game, you also have to fight the Raven Keeper and unravel the mystery of how these birds became Odin's spies in the first place. Now, if you haven't completed this side quest and you plan on doing so, we recommend you skip to the timestamp shown on the screen, because it's very worth it to experience this quest firsthand. So this is your final warning. Seriously, go kill some ravens. So if you're still watching, let's talk about what makes this side quest so special. With every 7 to 8 ravens you find, you get access to another legendary chest, and while that's cool and all, it's not nearly as interesting as the poem the ravens recite every time you open a chest. Once you've found all the ravens, you are attacked by the Raven Keeper, which I gotta say is such a well-designed boss for something that most players probably won't experience. Once you finally defeat the Raven Keeper and head back to the Raven Tree, the ravens recite their last verse. Now, if you've been paying attention to what the poem actually says, you'll be treated to a very fucked up piece of lore.
Did they just say what I think they say?
Yes.
Turns out, all of these ravens are actually the souls of children. The Odin... what does that say? The Odin dealt with using... well, he dealt with them using some rope and some tree branches, and enslaved their souls to turn them into his personal spies. And the Raven Keeper is basically there to watch over them and make sure they fall in line. Wow. It's actually really hard to talk about this without pissing off YouTube. But the point is, all this lore, all that amazing loot, and a spectacular boss fight are entirely missable, and you'll only get to experience it if you went through the trouble of hunting 48 ravens. Now, if that's not how you make a collectible rewarding, I don't know what is. But enough about collectibles. Let's get into the really interesting part. But before we do so, if you're enjoying this video, maybe you want to use your own Spartan rage to smash that like button. And if you want to see more of us here at Playing Favorites, make sure to subscribe. Me and Hash have so many great videos coming out soon and you don't want to miss out on them. Now back to Dad of Boy. Or I guess it's Dad of Bear now. But in any case, let's talk about point number 2. Linking the side quests to the main story. This is perhaps the most important thing Santa Monica did to make the side missions feel more consequential. There are many examples of this, but the first one that comes to mind is having to rescue Birgir from a dragon after he sacrificed himself to save your party right before the climax of the game. Now this side quest takes place in the Vanaheim crater, but we'll come back to the crater in point number 3. What I do find interesting about this quest though, and a lot of other side missions in God of War Ragnarok, is how it took an event from a main story mission and expanded on it in a way that made the quest feel more like a continuation of the story, rather than an extra piece of filler content. Having these side quests be a direct follow-up to main story plot points is genius. Not only does it help tie up any loose ends, but it also engages the player on a whole other level, compared to the side quests that are there just for the sake of extra content. Like many Ubisoft... Okay, I'll stop bringing up Ubisoft. Disregarding Hash's rude interruption, another side quest that comes to mind when talking about this is the Remnants of Asgard questline. So at the end of the game, you start Ragnarok and Asgard gets destroyed and you kill Odin, you know how the story goes. But after that, 10 shards of Asgard fall from the sky across the realms. And it's your job to go there and kill any remaining... I'm just not gonna try. All of these remnants are interesting in their own way. Some of them give you really tough boss fights, while others give you some collectibles. But the one I'm most interested in is the one in Niflheim, where you have to clear out an Asgardian prison. There are many Easter eggs and references to the main story here, but the biggest one by far is all the way down at the bottom of the prison, where you will find and free the real Tyr. And that is exactly the point I'm trying to make here. Instead of just being another mindless fight, Santa Monica used one of these remnants of Asgard to answer a huge question from the story, which is, if that was Odin the whole time, where's the real Tyr? And this was a much better alternative to letting the players assume that he was killed by Odin. And it makes Odin an even better villain in retrospect. You can actually see Tyr across the 9 realms after you free him, reflecting on what he missed and referencing other mythologies, but that's a different video for a different day. Now, let's dive into our third and biggest point. But before we do so, have you platinumed God of War? What did you think about the post-story content? Let us know in the comments below. The third creative decision that Santa Monica made does not only apply to the side missions. I think it encompasses their entire game-making process, and it's almost definitely the decision that inspired them to go through the trouble of creating everything we discussed in the last 2 points. And that is adding value. That's the core principle behind making the collectibles more rewarding or linking side missions to the main story. And it's the driving force behind all of the examples I'm about to mention in this section. Starting with the biggest piece of missable content in this game, the crater. Like I said before, when you go to rescue Birgir, you enter this area called the crater in Vanaheim, and it is massive, filled to the brim with side quests, collectibles, boss fights. The crater feels like its own open world within God of War Ragnarok, and it is overwhelming. In a good way though. Once you enter the crater, you'll quickly realize that there are a lot of areas that you can't access straight away. Some areas only unlock at night, while others are only accessible at daytime. Some areas require you to raise the water level, which you have to do in an entirely different section of the crater. Other areas are only accessible in a certain sequence, and you can't get to them until you've completed the previous areas. And of course, there are some places in the crater that are completely hidden, and you basically have to stumble upon them while you're running around in circles.
And some areas have respawning enemies, and there's a boss that you have to fight 5 different times in different locations. And there are areas that are locked puzzles, and other areas that need a boat to get to, and areas that need Freya for, and areas Freya can't get to. And you have fetch quests and dragon hunts and draugr rolls and rift portals.
It's a masterfully designed portion of the map. It really is. The way I see it, the entire crater is just one big puzzle, and it is so satisfying when you are finally able to crack it. But don't be fooled, it will take time. When I first got to the crater and realized how much there is to do there, I spent 10 hours exploring and doing favors, and I did not leave until every checkbox on the map was filled. And again, this entire section, a huge portion of Vanaheim, with boss fights and respawning enemies, is entirely missable if you decided they didn't care enough to save Birgir. While the creator is definitely the most impressive piece of side content, it is far from being the only one. Maybe you feel like getting your ass kicked? Well, go fight any of the 13 berserkers in the game. Huge emerald bosses that are harder than any boss in the main story, all with different attacks and elemental effects. That's too easy for you? Well, go to Alfheim where you can fight 3 of them at the same time, and hate your life if you're playing on any difficulty aside from the easiest 2. Now, if you want a real beatdown, why don't you go to Muspelheim and say hi to the new Valkyrie Queen? And watch her kill you over and over again till you start seeing her in your nightmares. If you thought the Valkyrie Queen in the first game was hard, oh boy, you're in for a treat.
Fuck did it!
But let's say you're not a masochist, and you want to avoid these fights. Well, you can watch 2 huge jellyfish fuck in the night sky in Alfheim. Or maybe you felt bad that you couldn't explore Jotunheim in the last game. Well, now you can go there and pet everyone's favorite good boy.
Good boy.
In all seriousness though, all of these additions to the game, whether it's the frustrating and at the same time satisfying crater, or the super hard boss fights, or petting Fenrir in Jotunheim, they all add value to an already amazing game. And they elevate the game from great to downright perfect. These elements are huge, they take a lot of work hours and a ton of development time to create. But Santa Monica's core principle of providing the player with as much value as possible within this $70 package ensured that they were added to the game. And that is what sets them apart from most other studios in the industry that ship half-baked games with tons of filler content. I guess the only way to sum this all up is to urge you to go back and experience all of this for yourself. There are games where I would tell you to play and drop as soon as the main story is finished, but there are a select few that need to be played to 100% completion, and God of War Ragnarok is at the very top of that list. There are so many great moments in this game that are entirely missable, but they add so much value to the overall experience that it is absolutely essential to experience them firsthand. I wish I had a platform to review games on back when this game came out, because honestly, it would have been the game to break the scale and get an 11 out of 10. God of War Ragnarok is a masterpiece, and if you haven't experienced everything this game has to offer, you're missing out. Thank you for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this video, check out Hash's video on Aloy's character transition from Zero Dawn to Forbidden West, which should pop up on your screen right now. If you want to hear more from us, subscribe and turn on notifications to get notified every time we release a new video. If you liked this video, let us know by hitting that like button and leave a comment telling us what game to cover next. We love hearing your ideas, and we'll catch you in the next one.